The King's New Clothes. Many years ago, there lived a king who was very rich and liked nothing more than buying new clothes. He did not enjoy hunting or going to the theater, except that these occasions give him the chance to show off his latest outfits. Time passed away merrily in the town where the king had his castle home, and every day people visited his court. One day, two men, calling themselves weavers, asked to see the king. They told him how they knew how to weave materials of the most beautiful colors and patterns, and how the clothes made from these materials were invisible to all who were unfit for the office they held, as well as to those who were exceptionally stupid. "These must be splendid clothes," thought the king to himself, "and it will be useful to know who in my kingdom is wise, and who is stupid, and who is unfit for the office they hold. Yes, make me a fine suit of clothes from this fabric," said the king, and he ordered a large sum of money to be given to the two men so that they might start work at once. The rogues asked to be supplied with vast quantities of the finest silk and gold thread, which they hid in the cellar of their houses. Then they set up a workshop with two looms and pretended to work at weaving the amazing clothes. Everyone in the city heard about the suit of clothes that was being made for the king, and they were all anxious to learn how wise, or indeed how foolish, their neighbors would turn out to be, not to mention who would be found to be unfit for the office they held. "I should like to know how the weavers are getting on with my clothes," thought the king one day. But he was a little nervous about going to have a look himself, for he thought it possible that he might be found to be stupid or unfit to be king. So he decided to send his faithful old minister, for he is a man of good sense, and if anyone is fit for his office, it is he, said the king. So the faithful old minister went to see the weavers, and found them working away at the empty looms. "What does this mean?" he said to himself, for he could see no fabric. "Could it be that I am stupid, or even not fit for my office? I must pretend that I can see it." "Come closer," said one of the knaves, "and look at the pattern. Is it not beautiful?" "Oh yes," replied the old minister, "it is excellent. I will tell His Majesty today just how beautiful it is." They talked at length about the pattern and the colors, and the minister listened carefully to every word, so he could tell the king exactly what it looked like. Then the two men asked for more silk and gold thread to be brought to them, so they could finish making the fabric. They hid these in the cellar of their houses, and continued to pretend to work at the empty looms. A few days later, the king sent another of his officers to see when the cloth would be ready. When he saw the empty looms, he also decided to pretend that he could see the cloth, not wanting anyone to know that he was either stupid or not fit to hold his profitable office. So when the two men asked him, "Are you not delighted with the colors and the patterns?" he replied, "Yes, it is very beautiful." And he too listened carefully to their descriptions. He returned to the king with a detailed account of the fabric. Soon, the whole city was talking about the remarkable cloth that was being woven especially for the king. And now the king himself decided to go and examine it. He selected a number of courtiers to accompany him, including the two who had already admired the cloth. The men appeared to be working hard at the empty looms. As the royal party entered the room, the two officers, imagining everyone else could see the fabric on the loom, declared, "Look at these patterns, look at these colors. Is it not magnificent?" "Oh dear," thought the king, "how can this be? I can see nothing. I cannot let anyone think that I am a fool or that I am unfit to be king." So he said, "It is amazing. I must have a suit of clothes made from this fabric to wear for the procession." And all his courtiers applauded his decision, even though not one of them could see anything at all. It was not many days before the grand royal procession was due to take place in the city, and the tricksters sat up late every night, pretending to cut and pin and sew. "Look," they cried at last, "the king's new clothes are ready." The courtiers gathered to escort the king to the chamber, where the rogues were waiting to dress him in his new suit. As he entered, they raised their arms as if they were holding something up, saying, "Here is your clothes, your majesty, and here are your trousers. This is the shirt, and these are the fine undergarments you will need to put on. The whole suit is so light that when you wear it, you will feel as though you are wearing nothing at all." Not one of the courtiers could see a thing, yet they all declared how exquisite the garments appeared. "If your majesty will be pleased to take off your clothes, we will fit your new suit." The king was undressed by his personal servants and stood in front of a mirror, while the two rogues pretended to put on the new suit. "How splendid his majesty looks!" cried out the courtiers. "And how well the clothes fit!" "The colors are beautiful," said one. "The design is magnificent," said another. As the king turned from side to side, admiring himself in the mirror. Out in the streets, all the people were talking about the king's amazing new suit. There was great excitement as they took their places, wondering who would be found to be wise and who among them were fools. Meanwhile, at the palace, the king smoothed down his imaginary coat, and his courtiers busied themselves arranging the tray on the floor behind him. Then 6 of them pretended to pick it up and walked proudly behind the king. A crown was placed on his head, and he set off on his grand procession through the streets. The people gasped as they saw him approach and cried out, "Your clothes are beautiful!" Not one of them could see a stitch on the king, but they did not want to appear foolish in front of the king or their fellow citizens. Those who held office, high and low, were mindful of losing their positions in life, so they were not willing to confess to what they really saw. But there was a little boy in the crowd who had not heard the story about the king's magic suit of clothes. And as the grand procession came into view, the child let out a piercing shriek and cried, "Look at the king! Look at the king! The king has got no clothes on!" Another voice was heard to say, "The king has got no clothes on." And then another, and another, until the whole town was filled with laughter as they all realized that they had been tricked. Everyone except the king and his officers was laughing. The poor man walked on in a most dignified manner, with those following holding up the imaginary tray until they reached the safety of the palace. What became the 2 tricksters? Well, the instant that the king and his party had left the palace, they raced home, emptied the cellar of their treasure, and loaded onto a cart. By the time the grand procession was over, they had escaped into another kingdom, and they lived there in the lap of luxury for the rest of their days. Thank you for listening, boys and girls.